How did you get involved in the movement?
Well, I got involved from my employer. He was the treasurer of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Okay. And I would always keep his records, type up information when the kids went to jail to get them out on bond, and their monthly, weekly reports, see that the receipts and all was correct and sent to the bank for their collections.
Who was your employer during that time?
W.E. Shortridge.
And that's a funeral home?
It is, was at a funeral home.
Mm-hmm. How often would people get locked up?
Oh, gee, just every day.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very crucial time at that time that I worked there when Mr. Shortridge was treasurer of the movement. It was just a daily thing. I really wasn't afraid, even though we would get daily threats over the telephone that we're coming and bum you, and we're going to do this to you, and we're going to do that over the telephone. However, they never did do anything at the funeral home, but they did at Mr. Shortridge's home.
What happened to his home, or at his home?
Well, he was, they had this attempt, assassination one night, and it just luckily that, in the grace of the good Lord, that he was not killed.
When you became a registered voter?
Yes.
What did you think during that time of poll tax and taking? Did you have to take a test to?
Yes, I just thought it was awful, and the questions they would ask you just was unreasonable.
What would you share with us some of those questions that they asked?
Oh, they would ask you such things as how many stars there in the sky, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Just things that had nothing to do with learning to vote or
That's
wanting
right.
to vote.
That's right.
Do you think, with looking what's going on across the country, that people utilize the power of the vote as much as we should?
No, I don't think they do. Because we just have that sitting down thing, and then some of us take the attitude, oh, they're going to do this anyway, whether I vote or not, which is bad.
Mm-hmm. If you could say one something to encourage people to vote, what would you say?
I would say get out and vote.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it will really make a change.
You, of course, are most noted for your activity in Selma, but you are obviously pretty active even before Selma in voting rights and property ownership. Can you talk just a bit about that?
Well, first I came out of a family that my mother was an activist. She was a civil rights activist before the name came in. Okay. And in 1920 or 21, when women were given the right to vote, she had a horse and buggy. And she would take me with her. We would go from one house to the other. She would get the women out and take them down to the registration office. And when it was time to vote, she would take them there. And she was very active in civil rights before we knew anything about it. You're not really a first-class citizen until you become a registered voter. And for 30 years before the mushrooting of the civil rights struggle that we had, we worked almost single-handedly to get the people where they could register. And of course, they didn't. There were 80-some-odd registered voters when we went to Selma. And I ran for Congress, and during that time, in 1964, before Dr. King came into Selma, there were around 1,035 registered voters in the whole district of eight counties. The whites had 100,000 some odd registered voters, and I got 10.7% of the votes that were cast, which meant I got votes from the whites
Whites
as
as
well as the blacks. When I experienced that, it really gave me a greater motivation and a greater determination to fight for what we had fought for and got nowhere. What we were fighting for when in Selma, to get people to get the right to vote, the meetings that we had had, the types of applications that they had, which were 10 pages long and 10 questions on each page. And I said to myself that I'm going to fight because my husband lost his life fighting for them.
Right.
They didn't shoot him, they tried to. They shot in the house and broke the big plate glass window. The telephone became a nuisance from 7 o'clock in the evening until around 7 at night, saying, get out of town, your house is going to be bombed, you better not be seen on the street. And of course he had retired because of his health, which he had a number of strokes. And he lost his life because of the fact that a man came into the office to beat him. And when it happened that I was in his office, and when he raised the cane to do it, why, I grabbed the cane. But he went to the hospital for the last time and he never came out alive. So all of these things made me more determined to carry out what we started, to make every Negro a first-class citizen by having them to become registered voters.
I often felt that even some of the ideas that you put forth or some of the things you wanted to do or actions you took, had a male done that, it would not have been questioned. Even now, I feel that way sometimes. The issues that we've had involving tasers or patrol rifles, that some of them were here when I assumed the position, some of them male departments that surround us have, that they are headed by males. They haven't had to deal with those issues, but I have, and I feel that sometimes that's the reason.
How quickly were you able to climb the ranks through the police department?
I think I came through pretty quickly. I was promoted to lieutenant in 1991, I believe it was. Captain in 95, deputy chief in 2000, and chief in 2003. Part of the reason I believe I came through so quickly, well, as I always say, I was qualified for the position. I really was never seeking promotion. They had to encourage me to take the first promotion. All I wanted to be was an officer. So what I tried to do was always geared toward improving the department and helping others, and even trying to bring others up behind me. So I think people in key places noticed that I was not a backstabber or trying to put anybody else down.
Do you sometimes feel maybe you're stuck in the middle between the folks who say to you that they never thought they'd see this in their lifetime, you being a police chief, and then the younger people who have no sense of history and don't even understand what you represent?
I do. So I see myself as hopefully a bridge that can show how the ones who support me, who went through the civil rights struggle, I can now show the younger people through history that this is what they did. This is what you should appreciate. And this is a standard that you have to maintain. You may not have any money, but Mary McLeod Bethune didn't either when she started at college. Dr. Gaston didn't either when he started his business. It can be done, but you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to make sacrifices.
When I was coming up, breaking the law was, but I'm saying I found out that you had to break the laws that were unjust in order to change them. And that's what I did. And if it took going to jail and sometimes risking my life, I had to make a decision when if I was going to put myself in really harm's way, I had to make a decision. And once I made the decision, if whatever happens, happens. And that's about the bottom line there. And I think all of us did, really, because I was afraid, but being afraid, and then I made a decision. Well, in spite of my fear, I'm going to do this. And once I decided to do it, I was more relaxed in doing it because I had made a decision and I knew what the risk was.
So why did you go to Mississippi? What was the job that you went to do?
To try to get people registered to vote. I had been working all along with the civil rights movement, so I decided they needed people. They said they needed some people in Mississippi, so I decided to go to Mississippi. I was in Clarksdale, Mississippi, first, and I brought people from the orientation down to Clarksdale with me for the Mississippi Freedom Summer. And after that, I went to Natchez, Mississippi, where it was very dangerous there too. Friends of mine said you liked it hot. I guess I did. It took a very long time before our people got to the point where they didn't have fear of just walking in trying to register. It took the Justice Department, they had to literally come in and take over some of these places. My position is that everyone should be allowed to vote if you're a citizen in the United States of America. If they've committed crimes and you paid your dues and they allow you to come out in society, you should be allowed to vote because you paid your dues. I would say that to keep fighting against injustice and to ensure voting rights for everyone and justice for everybody. And it can be done in several ways. I'm saying you don't have to be an activist to do it. You can be a lawyer or whatever, a school teacher, but whatever you're in, if you see injustice, try to do something about it. Because silence is a way of saying you agree.
I had many scary nights and days, but I didn't, my attitude was to fight back.
What was scary about the nights and days that you had?
Well, almost every night some house was dynamited or burned down. I could stand in my bedroom window and look over to Center Street 1 block away where I now live. There were three-story houses. Moncrief, a big name still in Birmingham in politics and stuff. The Moncriefs lived in one of them. And they torched those 3 houses, and they were largely frame, and they burned all 3 of them down one night. I've never seen such a fire in my life, all 3 houses up in flames. But the letter only said if Birmingham would stop waving the red flag, if your newspapers and your officials, you'd have a pretty good city. That was the gist of it. That they were. The headline was Dean Davis Drew of this city says we're waving a red flag. So that's all I said. If you just stopped doing that, people would get along.
And that, at that point, was a rather militant statement.
In the early 50s, that was unheard of.
Yes, a revolutionary statement, in fact.
That's right. But of course, I didn't know that.
You were here at Miles when during the early 60s, mid-60s, the demonstrations of 63 came along. How, in fact, did you get involved in the movement?
I remember Andrew Young and James Bevel and I think Jose Williams came out to an assembly to speak to the students here at Miles. And their ultimate aim was to get students involved in the movement. They were having a mass meeting that night and we were being invited. And I can remember my fellow classmates sitting around being what I thought very apathetic toward what they were saying. As a matter of fact, several of my classmates said to me that they were not going to get involved, that they felt that getting an education was more important. And of course, I could not argue with that. I made the choice. Their apathy made me jump up to the microphone and do my spiel concerning their apathy, telling them why I thought we should participate in the movement by attending these mass meetings and at least giving the people a chance to see what they had to say. But many of them told me that it was up to me, that I could go on and be a part of, but they were going to stay here and get their education. And for the most part, most of them did. Even though I was not involved in I was not a part of the NAACP, I was not a part of anything, but their message touched me.
Immediately?
Immediately. And their suggestion was that we attend the mass meeting that night. And I can't remember, but I think it was going to be held at 6th Avenue Baptist Church or something like that. But they invited us to attend that mass meeting and learn more about the movement, to come, so that we could become involved. And just listening to their movement made me want to know more. And from that first mass meeting on, whatever I could do to be a part of that movement, I was there.
You did work in voter registration.
Yes.
Tell me about that. How did you?
Well, I wasn't. I wanted to be a voter. Well, some of the meetings was at my church at
The mass meetings.
Yes.
Of the movement.
Yes.
And what church were you with at the time?
Zion Hill, right down from 16th Street Baptist Church, and that's where the voter registration was. And in the evening time. So they taught me the Constitution and the things that they asked you, and then I went and I passed.
Did you pass the first time?
Yes, I learned those things, and I learned it, and I said, then I passed the vote, and then I started working to help the other people to vote, because a lot of them had gone down and didn't pass it. It's two things that they asked me was the Constitution of the United States and how many and the presidents. Well, I named some of them because I couldn't remember them all. So he said, "Well, that's okay." So so that was that. And so I got past that. But a lot of the people I think they asked. It wasn't like a structured question, and because people were saying different things that they were being asked. And so we was trying to help them to remember it all. And some of the people were older and they couldn't remember all what we were teaching them to.
At that first meeting, one of the ministers who looked a little different than the others, his name was James Bevel, asked all of the teenagers to meet him in the church's annex. That particular meeting was held at New Pilgrim Baptist Church. We went to the church's annex. He polled the audience, what schools we went to. We had a lot of school spirit, and we cheered when he called our school's name. Then he went back and started asking questions Okay, I'm a graduate of Ullman High School. He said, at Ullman High School, how many electric typewriters do you have? Electric typewriters were probably like computers are today. And I said, we have one, but I get to type on it because I'm a good typist. And he said, did you know at Phillips High School, which was an all-white school, that they have 3 rooms of electric typewriters? They don't even practice on those things you use at Ullman. That kind of got my interest rolling. He asked if any of the guys there played football at Ullman. My brother was on the football team. And he asked, have you ever wondered why your helmets are blue and white when you get them, but your colors are green and gray? My brother said, we always paint them the right colors. He said, well, why do they come in green and gray? And of course, we didn't know the answer. And he said, it's because you get Ramsey's discards. He didn't just choose Ullman, he gave lots of examples. But it gave me the knowledge that something wasn't right with this picture. He asked if we'd ever looked at our copyright dates in our textbooks. And I hadn't looked at a copyright date. Table of contents, yeah. Copyright date, no. He said, check that out. Your books are outdated. The more he said, the more I knew that I'm being mistreated, and I didn't even know it. So he said, now, if you want to do something about it, you can. Your parents really can't, because if they get in trouble, if they go and participate, go to jail, they're going to lose their jobs. There's no one to take care of you. But you don't have a lot to lose. After all, you're getting a second-class education. I bought into it, and that's why I became a part of the civil rights movement.
So what happened then?
Okay. Well, May 2nd, 1963. That was what we were calling D-Day. And we were saying, that's D-Day, we're going to go and get our freedom. I had attended several meetings after that initial one. We had learned freedom songs. We had been instructed that if you could not remain nonviolent, you could not participate in this movement. So on D-Day, it was on a Thursday, I got up and I was just welled up with excitement, thinking about what was going to happen. We knew that if we paraded without a permit, we were going to jail. So I had packed my purse, got my toothbrush, soap, deodorant, all the things I thought I would need for a nice overnight stay. And my mother sensed something was going on. They were talking about it on the radio in coded words, about we're going to have a party in the park, we're going to turn it out, you know, saying things like that. And we knew exactly what the DJs were talking about. My mother cautioned me. She said, I'm sending you to school. Don't you go anywhere and get in any trouble. I don't have any money to get you out. I said, yes, ma'am. That's what she needs to hear. That's what I said. But I was going to school. I just wasn't going to stay. So because the plan was to go to school and then walk out. So we went to school, and everybody was talking about it. And when we went to first period class first and then to homeroom, when it was time to go to homeroom, we started walking out in droves. People were driving around the campus, offering rides to 16th Street Church, but most of us chose to walk. We walked and we were singing freedom songs, and when we got to 16th Street, there were people everywhere. In the park, on the steps, in the church, all over. And the excitement just intensified. And when we went into the church, we sang, we prayed, and Andrew Young and James Bevel were in charge. They lined us up in pairs, and they sent us out, I found out later, in waves of 50. I was in that first wave. We joined hands, walking out in pairs, singing, "We Shall Overcome." Got maybe a block away from the church before we were stopped. Police officer, speaking through a megaphone, told us that we were in violation of a city ordinance. We could not parade without a permit. We could get out of the line, nothing would happen. If we remained in the line, we would go into jail. That was a very intimidating moment for me personally. I was not accustomed to disobeying adults, especially a white male who had a stick in one hand, a pistol on his hip, and I kind of wanted to obey him. Someone further back started singing, "We Are Not Afraid." That gave me the courage to remain in the line, to get in the paddy wagon, and to go to jail.
I grew up next door to Brother Shelburne, even with my father and Brother Shelburne. I just knew I had to do what I had to do. And I knew what was right to do and what I believed in, and I had no problem doing that because I knew it would be a change, and we had to make the difference. Well, I think that those were experiences that I'll never forget. It makes a difference when I see someone in positions, in great positions, or I felt good when I had my office and employees, both black and white, working under me in different capacities at different times in my life. I've been in management a lot. But it made me feel good to know that had we not marched, had we not done all those things, we would never have gotten to be in the positions we were in. You know, because out of college field, there's doctors that has come out of there, and lawyers and everything that has come out of college field. So it made a big impact. Plus it gave us the responsibility to know that we had to make it work for me. It made a difference.
I was a member of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights, and I also was a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a member of the NAACP, and the Southern Conference Educational Fund. I became a member of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights after they were organized, after the NAACP was outlawed.
Were you one of the founding members of the Alabama Christian Movement?
Well,
in
I don't
1956?
think I was a founding member, but I started at the second meeting.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay. What was the second meeting like?
The second meeting was very impressive because it was at a time when I think that all of us who attended that mass meeting were aware that things were bad in Birmingham and it was not getting any better, and it was time for us to do something about trying to make things better for blacks in Birmingham. I never had any fear. I felt that if the bombings or the shooting or whatever's going to happen, it just happened because we were treated like we were second-class citizens. During the movement days, after I became correspondent secretary, I became very active and stayed very busy dealing with the correspondence for the organization. I also had an opportunity to help with bringing in setting up the conference for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference when they came to Birmingham. I had an opportunity to set up the conference for the Southern Conference Education Fund when they met here in Birmingham. I was also instrumental in assisting Dr. King's staff in the person of Reverend Wyatt T. Walker when we invited them to come to Birmingham in '63. I went to Dr. Gaston to secure an office space for them because before they came, we did not have an office space. So I was instrumental in getting that set up for him and put him in contact with the people that he needed to contact in Birmingham that would help us get the direct action campaign taken care of. Then the other things that I did, my family and I were very active. My ex-husband and I filed a lawsuit during the 50s, which was to integrate the parks in Birmingham, Alabama. Well, I think as a result of the movement, as far as my family is concerned, it made us better individuals as it relates to knowing what we were entitled to be and what we had been deprived of. We had been denied a lot of opportunities,
And after the movement started and doors started opening up for us, we were able to walk into doors that we never would have done if we had not even started this.
Now, you became rather active in politics in the mid-60s. Tell me just a bit about it. How did you get involved in politics?
Well, I tell you what, living in Fayetteville, they did not have a single black on the council out there. So the people came to me who were interested in running as a candidate for a seat on the council. They asked me if I would be their campaign manager. And out there in Fairfield, they had a building called the Moorers Hall, some kind of Christian organization, no building. And I agreed. There were 7 who qualified to run. And I told them...
Approximately what year is this?
That was 1969.
Okay.
And I agreed. I told them if they all would work from one pool, I would serve for all of them.
So you were the campaign manager for each of those?
All
7?
And together.
Okay.
We used the same building. All of them worked in the same building. And out of the 7, 6 won. Those were the first black council persons elected out there.
So you elected 6?
6 out of 7.
Out of 7.
We walked the streets, we went to churches, we raised our money. We didn't spend, the candidates didn't have to spend any money. We had mass meetings at churches and things like that and raised the money. And I got those ministers going.
Right, well that was the question I was going to ask. How did you get the people out?
The people came out, I got those ministers to help me get the people out. And they supported it. And Fairfield was so happy people there were so happy that they had some blacks on the council.
Right, and now this was the first time that blacks had actually served, or it was the first time that blacks had run for office?
No, first time they had served. They were elected. They had not even tried to run for office.
Well, at what point did you decide to run for office yourself?
I was in Birmingham, at that time. You remember Judge Vance?
Yes, ma'am.
Robert Vance that was killed with that bomb. Yes. And I started going to the meeting with David Hood all the time, to the state Democratic Committee meetings and things like that. And I was elected as a member of the state Democratic Committee of Alabama. And Judge Vance, we were in Washington. And he said, Lavinia said, there's a vacancy in District 39. Why don't you run? You all always talk about women don't do this, that, and the other. And I liked him a lot. He was a nice fellow. And I told him, I said, you joking. I said, no women are going to win, and especially a black one, I told him. And he said, well, you got all black voters. And he said, come on and try it. He was president of the state party at that time. And he got me in there to run in District 39 then, but it's 53 now. See, Newton is in that district now.
That's right.
And the party got me in there. They didn't put me in there empty-handed either with no money or nothing. They gave me the money.
They were supportive of you.
Very. And they even came out and helped me campaign. Don Siegelman, he used to go from door to door for me over in the white neighborhood.
Right.
I think it's a small neighborhood in District 53.
Right.
But Don Siegelman and all of them, they
what year was this that you
that was, what year was I elected? 76 or 77.
I participated in making signs, working at the Smith Building office, answering the phone, and just doing whatever they needed me to do, and then later on working for registration.
You then were you a registered voter at the time?
No, kind of young. They didn't.
You were. Yeah,
I wasn't quite. That was my age.
Okay, but what did you do in terms of voter registration?
Well, at Thursday Baptist Church is now relocated, but at the time it was close to all the funeral homes, and they would we would sign the community up. Everybody come out to sign and sign and show how to fill the papers out, and then they were given free transportation by anybody in the community who volunteer, and including funeral homes. They would offer their services to give free rides to anyone who wanted to go out to the courthouse to be registered.
You also helped to register or prepare people for registration.
Right.
Now, do you remember when you went to take the test yourself?
Yes, I do. They had somebody to train us for the test because they had gotten a copy of the test. And they, you have to, just like preparing a soldier for war.
Right.
They prepared us and showed us what to do, and they told us when we went down. Not to be nervous, don't look at anybody because it will intimidate us, and they didn't want us to forget what we had to do. And what the right...
You were not to look directly at the person.
Because they would intimidate you. I remember looking at one white man. He was a big... I could see his face now. He was a fat white man. He had dark hair. And, I could see him just as clear as day, and he snarled at me. And I remember that they told us not to look, and then I knew then why. So when we got there and we sat down and take this, they would just, throw the papers at you. They didn't treat you nice. We were prepared for that. We knew it. We knew we were going to, right, but we were supposed to be submissive, do whatever they told us to do. Pay no attention to their ignorance, okay? And we took the test, and when we came out, I remember coming out, and it was white people down at the bottom of the steps. I remember not looking at them. I remember just going on.